So I was asked one time, what does death look like to you in the tarot? And at the time, I was very quick to answer with specific cards that, to me, denoted death, or at least gave a sign as to someone who was considered or perceived to be dead, communicating with me. And I still stand by those specific cards that I discussed, but I'd like to expand upon it a lot more, because essentially death has no and all meaning in the tarot. What I mean by that is we hear the word death and we do what I did, which was look at specific cards and think, oh, that looks ominous, or oh, that's lovely and beautiful. But really, every single card is an indicator of death. Every single one of them, as much as they are life. It's just about what contexts you apply and what the message is that you are receiving. And so I think the biggest lesson that I've received from this, in terms of looking at each and every card, is do not be afraid of death. There is death in everything. It takes on varying degrees. It's along a spectrum, and death doesn't always mean the absolute that we've been conditioned to believe that it does mean, and therefore are fearful of. So that's one thing that I've learned. But besides what I've learned, I'm only here simply because you asked me to be here. And when I say you, I don't mean the potential audience when it comes to YouTube. I mean you specifically, and you know who you are. So I'm doing this simply to show you how I read. And I suppose if it were to go any further than you and I would want it to be a gift, not of teaching people what I believe they should see, but teaching people how to read in a different way. And therefore that reading will expand upon their own experience. Their own experience will feed into said readings, and they will feel more confident with their intuition. Intuition really is iteration. It's an iterative process of trusting yourself, and therefore all that is within you will bring itself forward as trusted companions on your tarot journey. Right, so when it comes to tarot and mediumship, it's constant for me. I have never had a day that has passed where there hasn't been communication with the dead and living. I have found that throughout my life, I've never known the that's not true. It's not that I've never known the difference. I just wasn't aware of a difference between the dead and the living. And there are some who will take that statement and be like, how could you not know? Because you're thinking about people in coffins and thinking about people in urns, etc. It's not about physical death each and every time, although physical death does occur for the body, of course, and that is one way to, well, the only way really to determine that someone's actually dead. But when it comes to spiritual communication, there are several living bodies that contain many dead people, i.e. DNA, genetics, and these things, as you start to take on spiritual literacy, will speak with you and will communicate with you through this living body, which is why I never really understood that there was a distinction between the two. Now that I do, I realise that there are probably many who have experienced very similar circumstances as myself and experiences as myself, and perhaps haven't attributed it to spiritual communication. So I'd like to show what I read and just have some fun with it, basically. So first of all, what I do when it comes to reading is I read a full deck. I understand that there are those who go for the 3 cards, the 5 cards, whatever their cross is, whatever it is that they choose to do. But I have found in my spiritual communication that you must have the full story. And this is the pressure of mediumship to some degree, for me anyway, in that I have witnessed many renowned and absolutely revered mediums who have given beautiful messages and beautiful closure for those who are seeking to communicate with their loved ones. Except, yeah, I kind of got, not necessarily the opposite, but because I've always had the full story, I've often had where there may be a message of communication that is so beautiful and loving, and oh, granddad who had a gammy leg really loves you, and that's all beautiful, but everything that's left I was getting the message for, i.e. yes, granddad with the gammy leg really loves you, but grandma over there is saying, well, granddad was an absolute a-hole, and the children of that relationship are saying, yeah, but granny, he was like this. And then you've got one side of the family arguing with the other, and then they start going through all the different contexts of the tarot, such as like in the justice system, and you end up being a judge, and you're like, what the heck is going on? So there's a lot that goes on in the background that is outside of being the loved one. I tend to receive people who feel they were unfairly treated throughout their lives, and perhaps are not necessarily seeking closure for it, but just removal from it. Just like, look, stop calling me back here. I do not want to be here, but you keep on sending the vibration of my name, and so I'm attending, but I don't want to be here. I want you, Chanel, to tell my loved ones that, yeah, it's all well and good, but we're no longer together. I don't want to know. Thank you very much. Please get on with your life, because you sending your prayers and your blessings and all these lovely things to me is absolutely amazing, but you didn't give a crap when I was here. Do you know what I mean? So that's the kind of stuff that I get. So anyway, so doing the full reading, it gives me an opportunity to I suppose damage limitation, really, where it's like, okay, I can see the message, I can hear the message, I can feel the message. I'm going to give it time, work out how to do this diplomatically, and hopefully this will be the end of it, kind of thing. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not every single time that this happens. I'm also blessed with absolutely beautiful reunions spiritually, where you may have people who've spent lifetimes apart who are settling back into the bodies that they are meant to be in, the bodies that vibrate to each other, and they experience such an amazing communion and love. It's amazingly beautiful. But sometimes you have to deal with the dirt first, right? Because with these loved ones, the ones who are truly in love in spirit, and then they come back together, you get the people who were like, I thought you loved me. And I'm like, oh, damn, what do I do? Right, so anyway, I digress. Right, so first things first, I suppose there's already a message in the running right now. I have a cup of coffee. Now, it's not that I don't drink coffee, but recently I've been drinking a lot more coffee, and this is a sign for me. This is a sign that says to me, Roma. And when we speak of Roma, I shan't go into what names or labels to give that, but I am automatically drawn to Tarot of the Bohemians, which is a book by, I think it's Papers, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce it, but basically there's a lot of information in that book. I would highly recommend it, and those who are meant for it will see the information that they're meant to receive. There's a bit of geometry, etc. in it, and if that's something that interests you, absolutely great, but there is a lot of hidden wisdom and knowledge in that book. Besides that, I now know that for me, the Tarot of Bohemians is a lot about, oh, itchy eye there, a lot about neutering, which is to basically like neutralize and saying, look, can we close this cycle off, because I'm seriously done. So we already know that that's what's happened. So before I even went to shuffle the cards, as in prepping for this little kind of whatever this is, two cards fell out. The Queen of Pentacles and the Devil. Let me just move my coffee. Don't want to be rude. But anyway, right, so the Queen of Pentacles and the Devil popped out. So I'm going to use them as the first two cards of this entire spread, right? But one thing to note already is that, what does death look like to you, Chanel, in the tarot? Well, here we go. The Queen of Pentacles is a great example of that. That's saying to me that we have someone who is quite established in terms of burial in the ground. You have a lot of, oh, let me zoom in on this. I can zoom with my remote, if I can find the bloody remote. Here we go. Right, so basically, this is, this shows, where are we, missus? Yeah, we have the gravestone here. You know when like you go to old cemeteries and they have like moss and stuff growing on them? That's essentially what the Queen of Pentacles card is saying to me right now. This is someone, this is years back. This isn't a recent burial. We also have the Devil card, which is a very deep card. So it's saying that they're very deep in the ground. So if you're looking at the ground as, oh, what's the word? What's the word I'm looking for? Oh, sedentary. Is it sedentary? Where you have like layers of layers, I suppose, topsoil. If you're a gardener, I'm pretty sure you could tell me what it was. But basically, this is saying to me, this is deep down, like this is the deep stuff. So already I know that this is it's likely to be the farther end. When I say farther, I mean distance, further end, sorry. Maybe there's a reason I said that. The further end of a century. But the rest of the cards, excuse me, another sign, I get very gassy when I'm having these spiritual communications, so do excuse me. So yeah, so it's basically saying that we have someone who is in the grave, and I'm saying someone, though the indicator with Queen of Pentacles could suggest that it's a woman, but you're not going to know this until you've read the entire series of communication. All right, so we have a woman. Or do we have a woman? I just said we can't assume that. See, this is the thing, is I know that it is, but I have to like at least rationalize what's being said as a way of breaking it down. I just get the full message and I'm like, okay, well, we'll use the cards to kind of like to portray what's being said. So anyway, so I'm going to shuffle these cards, hopefully do this on the speed up thing if I can get my head around the technology that goes with it. And I'll come back to you with the full 78. I do 13 columns and 6 rows, but that's only because of the size of this table. Thank you very much, my dear nephew who's lent this to me. Otherwise, however you feel to do it, go for it. But I do it in the 13 by 6 so that I have an even square, and the square for me means closing it off. You're completing it, it's done. There are some who will go with the circle, and that's another type of reading that I do, but it's interesting how you can actually square the circle. So that square can become a circle and 3s, and those who are into astrology can look at those 3 rings as being the cardinal, mutable and fixed signs. You can look at it in ways of the compass. There are a variety of ways that you can look at it. But like I've said, I'm not here to teach people what they should see or how to see, but I am here to show different ways of reading that hopefully will expand upon that perception, will encourage or at least inspire the intuition of any individual to come forward, and people start seeing signs in a different way. Because it's interesting how, for me anyway, I experience what may be considered mundane signs, but I just pay more attention to them, not making me in any way superior, but just because I know that it's coming from a source that doesn't have a physical presence to be able to drill or drum their message home. And so I just need to pay a little more attention as to what's being said. Almost like looking at a baby and them telling you, look, there's an 80-year-old man in here, like let me out, like kind of thing. That happens too. Right, so anyway, so I'm going to pause this for a moment, come back to you with the shuffling of cards. Like I said, this is like live time, so do excuse me if this goes on for some time. I'm still getting up to speed as to how to speed up. Okay, I assume you saw it there. So I was like literally throwing cards around, and one card flew out, fell on the floor, and it was Judgment. So again, here's another example of what death can look like in the tarot. Okay, so all cards are dealt. Give me a moment. I'm just going to turn the light on because it's getting a bit dim in this room. Okay, so besides death looking like this on the table, I've kind of seen myself in the screen. I'm like, yeah, this is kind of what it looks like. But anyway, right, so so here we go. So looking at what we have here, I haven't even taken the opportunity to scan over the cards. I'm literally doing this in live time. I hope it's of benefit to someone, if not myself. But yeah, so basically what happened was the first few cards that popped out, the first 2 cards prior to even shuffling, were the Queen of Pentacles and the Devil, and then the Judgment decided, whoa, want to chuck that one out. And then the Knight of Pentacles and Queen of Wands both showed their heads. I was kind of undecided as to which order the Knight of Pentacles and the Queen of Wands should go in. I placed them as I saw them, but it feels like there probably is a bit of a difference in, well, it doesn't feel like it will be. It will show that there will be a difference in terms of narrative if the order is changed. But I'd like to bear in mind that there was a a disconnect when it came to that order, but I don't want to change it around just yet, just to see what's happening. But as I was dealing out the cards, the Knight of Cups kind of felt a bit funny in my hand. It kind of slid a bit out of my hand, and so I tapped it as a way to mark out on the tape, the video, that this was a card of interest. I did it 3 times as well. The moment that happened, right, as I was putting out the cards, a poem that I'd written called, I'm trying to think which one it was. It's actually most recent, one of the more recent ones. It was actually about the Empress and the end of life, and how she can be a card, as they all are, that denotes end of life, but particularly in the context that it was written, and the poem that I'd written before that, which was titled The Exorcist 2, The Kid. Right, so I'm going to put both those poems up because I think that it would in some way help to explain what's being communicated from that side. Because essentially what happens is the work that I've put out has been met by those whose story that actually matches. And so basically what's happening is, what's being communicated to me is, those poems you wrote, they're my poems. So I'm going to walk to them, and you're going to help me for that not to happen in the life that I'm about to walk into. And I'm like, well, cool, like, well, okay, cool, let's do this. Right, so basically, those poems, I'll try and summarize, were around, well, one of them, the Exorcist 2 one about the kid, was basically saying that this actually happened, by the way. I was in a cafe, and I could see this woman who was, she was actually looking deflated. It wasn't even about stress at this point, but she had a child with her, a toddler. Or looked to be a toddler anyway, and he was an absolute bloody brat, I'm not gonna lie. But it wasn't the toddler that I was seeing the man in the toddler. Like, there was a presence in this toddler, and I don't mean as in the Exorcist, as in, no, actually I do, I'm not gonna lie, yeah, that's exactly what I mean. But it wasn't like a Damien kind of thing, or a Chucky Kid kind of thing. It's not so, it was very subtle, very, very subtle. And when it comes to what may be called spiritual possession, we all have spirit move through us. It's like electricity, and we're cables. Yes, there are certain houses that electricity will be supplied to, but just because we have receiving cables, it doesn't mean electricity stopped being there. It just means that there is an assignment of that electricity, but it's still there. So when we speak of possession, essentially what we're saying is, as living bodies, or as vessels, we all have spirit move through us. That's why we have moments of insight that we can't explain, where it's like, I know this, but how do I know this? Because what you're vibrating to, i.e. where you place your interests, etc., is being met by the experts of those interests. And if you choose to pay attention to it, you can really develop yourself as an individual in so many ways. But then there are also places that we place our interests that aren't necessarily good for us, and will attract those who enjoy those types of interests. So there's an upside and a downside. But anyway, back to this Knight of Cups. So even though this card didn't really make itself as well known or in such an aggressive way as those first 5 cards, particularly the first 2, it did make itself known. This is, to me, saying, okay, we have a dead, long dead person, and the Knight of Cups is the communicator. The Knight of Cups is the person. I'm going to say person anyway, like I'm not up for using terminology that's not mine. So I'm going to say the person coming forward, and there is there's like a reticence with this person coming forward. The death has been that of a child. The reason I say this is because the Sun and the 2 of Swords both indicate to me that there is a younger what's the word? They passed when they were younger, essentially, is what I'm saying. The Hermit being just above the child, I'm seeing the record of this child. And when I speak of the record, for some it could be considered the Akashic record, which covers everything, essentially. But this is really the child giving me the data of their lifetime, the lifetime that they want to focus on and communicate about. The 2 of Swords, interestingly, in this instance, do you know what? I'm not going to say how I see it. I'll just say it. The 2 of Swords in this instance is about the child was aborted. The reason I say this is the 2 of Swords is a cutting off. And if you look at the Two of Swords stomach, it's a little more bloated than, I don't know if you can see that. It's a bit more bloated than would be considered usual for the characters in the tarot. There are always hidden symbols that will make themselves obvious to you as you become, rather, as you come closer to the truth of the matter. Interestingly, I say the truth of the matter, which is in the Celtic cross, the second card is considered the heart of the matter. And the Two of Swords is the two. And although the Swords, I know, is not a popular suit, it's my favorite suit because it deals with the truth straight away. It's just like, it's either that or it's not. And you know what it is based on knowing what it's not. So you know straight away that it's true. So so we have a lot of well, I say a lot. My eyes are being drawn to the Two of Swords, the Ten of Swords, reversed or upright, because they're surrounding this character who is in the ground and showing themselves that they're in the ground with the reversal. And the Six of Wands is showing me that certainly was removal from the womb. The Six of Wands, although it can be taken in a gazillion different ways, as can any of these cards, when combined where they are in this layout, the Six of Wands speaks to me of the cervix being that wreath that the character that's walking as triumphant is holding. Another thing about the Six of Wands, and another thing about the tarot, me saying that you will see what you are meant to see in the tarot, is that many people subscribe to the character in the Six of Wands being a man. I see a woman. So yeah, that certainly does change the scenario, the situation, and the story. So I see a woman, I see abortion here, I see the cervix here. The Ten of Swords is the same reversal as the Knight of Cups. So I'm seeing the very literal message behind the swords in the back. So it's saying to me that there is a history of having been like, but because it being the Knight of Cups, it's showing me that this was done in its infancy, because the Knight is also is it a homophone? Is it homophone? Yeah, homophone or hominin. Anyway, where it sounds, if you take the phonics, it sounds different to what the actual spelling is. So, or it can be the same sound but different meanings. So the Knight of Cups, it tells me that there is an infancy to that. It's telling me night as in nighttime, but nighttime, in my experience with these communications, is a very different timeline to that of the conscious awareness, i.e. being alive. Right, okay. What else do we have that can suggest that there's... okay. So my eyes, when I'm reading as well, my eyes are just drawn to cards. I don't look for an order. It's a case of, since we're in this session of communication, and that's essentially what it is, it's almost as though it's being telepathically communicated, but it's as though the eyes play a very big part in that communication. And when I am in communion with he or she who I am conversing with or communicating with, it's not that they operate my eyes, but they inform my eyes as to what it is that they're trying to say. So I see the Two of Cups, I'm looking at the Tower, I'm seeing separation, and I'm seeing in the Five of Wands a hope or intention to rebuild. And this is where that poem about the kid comes into play. This kid, the kid itself is the actual kid, is saying that my mum, who is over here, has been trying to escape this dude for God knows how long, but the mum has been sat in the kid before the dad, not the dad, but the man who is in the poem, The Exorcist 2, the kid, occupied it. So it's not the same body. Basically, it's the same MO. So when the mum, the Queen of Pentacles, who chose not to be a mum, when she passed, she opted to utilize child energy, and so she occupied children, but he's been chasing her through those occupations as a way to I don't know, reunite, but reunite sounds like it's a mutual thing, and it's not. He just does, he wants her, she just doesn't want it. She's like, you've given me hell every lifetime, in and out of life, like, leave me the heck alone, dude. So basically he figured how to find her. He's stalking her, spiritual stalking. He basically figured out a way to find her because she was running through children, and so he did the same as a way to find her, but she's now back to being a woman and a female. But because he doesn't really have the same, I'm hearing the word grace, he doesn't have the same grace that she does, and so he's quite self-oriented in a selfish way. When she was occupying children, it was a way to further that which she occupied, her payment, if you like, for being allowed to be housed in what was her sanctuary, was to teach from within, whereas he was simply seeking to gain property, i.e. gain her throughout this. And so there's another sign, is that when he was occupying, because it was all for self and greed and a lot of low energy, no, not low energy, but low vibration reasons, the house that he was occupying, i.e. the children that he was occupying, were starting to show anomalies in terms of mental health, in terms of speech. There were impediments, and milestones weren't being met because he was basically taking them over. Which was another reason why she opted to jump back into being an adult female, because she was seeing the effect from her end. So anyway, oh, now that I've said that, my eyes are being drawn to the Three of Swords. So this child, okay, this child is really the, how do I put this? Oh, okay. So even though I'd written the poem The Exorcist to the kid, this was a lifetime that the woman had experienced had she have had the child that she didn't have with the guy who's still chasing her through children. So it was basically an alternate lifeline, something along those lines. So this child no longer has anything to say. This child has already had its closure and is saying, that kid in the poem you wrote, that's not me. But I will say that this woman who didn't have me, thank you very much, I appreciate it, because I've seen one absolute a-hole like my dad would have been. You're cool, thank you so much. Now I've had my say, I can go back to where I was, and I'm never going to have to come back to this again, because she's aware that the door to guilt is now closed. So you have nothing to feel guilty of. I'm enjoying the life that I'm in. I don't want to see either one of you, I'll be honest about it, but I don't feel malice towards you. I totally understand your reasons for it. But if I see you, then I see him, and nah, I don't want any of that. Thank you very much. So the devil card is now showing up for me, and is basically saying, yeah, that's essentially it. Like the parents just, the kid saw it and was like, hell no, if you didn't get rid of me, I'd have gone. Like, it didn't make any difference. It was going to happen anyway, kind of thing. The Knight of Pentacles next to the Queen of Wands is also showing a confirmation of that message. The Queen of Wands in this instance is actually a medium for babies. The sunflower is the umbilical cord. And the Queen of Wands is very similar to what I was saying at the beginning of this recording, in that there is no difference between the dying and the living and the dead and the alive, etc., because everything goes down to vibration. It's all about thought. So you can have like someone think something in 1922 and they could die in 1958, but their thoughts still travel, and that's where they pick their thoughts back up again. And so that meeting of minds that I was speaking of earlier, where, you know, you put something out there and it will be met spiritually by the person who claims that story as their own, that's essentially what happens when we have what we consider to be birth and death. And so even though I say she's a medium, it doesn't mean that she's speaking to dead children, but you kind of are, because Oh no, it gets confusing. So basically, the child carries the dead with them anyway. Do you know what I mean? So the Queen of Wands is essentially speaking to the aged parts, the older parts, the ancestry of the baby. And yeah, the sunflower depicts the umbilical cord. The cat at the base of the Queen of Wands' feet says to me that it's clairvoyance of deed. The deed is at the feet. And the moment I've said that, I'm going to do a Lenormand style technique, which is basically seeing where each of the cards meet, because that will again explain further what is being said here. So when I said about the Queen of Wands seeing the deed from the child, as it were, basically what I'm saying is the Queen of Wands sees the child and does exactly what I did in the cafe, and was like, I see it's a kid, but I can see beyond the kid. I'm seeing below the kid. I'm talking to the granddad of that kid, kind of thing. And the granddad of the kid is a big grown-ass man. So we have the Queen of Wands, and when I said about the record, the data, the deed, I'm thinking of the Hermit. The Hermit straight away is my go-to for, don't tell me any nonsense, no embellishments, just show me what it is that I actually need to know here. And so the Hermit will retrieve the facts of the situation and present them throughout the symbols of the tarot. So I'll see where they meet, and they meet in the Page of Pentacles. That's interesting. Ooh, oh gosh. Okay, so we have the Page of Pentacles. The reason I say, oh, that's interesting, the Page of Pentacles, I know when it comes to conventional and traditional meanings, can be considered, what's the word? Oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Not jovial character, but light-hearted and similar to the Fool in that they're young at heart is the song that's coming to mind. Young at heart. But because of the context that we're dealing with this in, even though I hadn't seen it at the time, I see it now. And I knew there was a reason for me going, about the Page of Pentacles. Because usually it's like, oh, you're all right. Not today. Because doing the same technique with that meeting thing, we have the Nine of Cups and the Four of Pentacles on either side meeting with this Page of Pentacles, right? Now, there are those who are like, but Pentacles is money. And it's like, dudes, you have no idea. Pentacles is way beyond any of that. But like, if that's what you want to look at, but we're talking about dead people here, right? We're talking about mediumship here. So what I'm seeing, right, is, oh my gosh. Right, okay. So it can get technical, but I'm trying to break down, like I've said, I see it all in one go, and I'm trying to break it down to all the steps of my experience that have led to that conclusion. And so what we have Page of Pentacles, which is in position 5 from the left, right? Not from left, right, yeah, see what I did? No, but from the left, okay? Now, consider that the Queen of Pentacles at the very top, she's at the very far left. She's at the furthest left, furthest and farthest. Interesting, I keep saying farther. There's something there. Farthest left of the entire spread. She anchors the entire spread, right? But everything behind her, because she's facing left, is considered the past. Again, a very Lenormand technique, and it doesn't mean that this technique cannot be applied to the tarot, and I believe it should be, because it only makes sense. It's logical. It makes sense outside of the system of Lenormand. So the two are certainly interchangeable. I will say that for sure. But yeah, it's 5 cards in, as in 5 cards back for this woman, which tells me that she's communicating. When I said about what am I trying to say? When I said about the time of death, as it were, and I said it was an old grave, we're looking at 50 years back, around 50 years. The reason I say that is because of the 5 cards in. But there's also an additional message going on here, which is back to this stalking, this spiritual stalking should be ex-partner, right? The Four of Pentacles. Oh my gosh, this Four of Pentacles. Now, I struggle to like this card. Do not get me wrong. There are times when it comes into a reading and it's like, oh, thankfully, I see you a bit differently today. But this card is a flag card for me. This is like, this dude is not letting go. He will not let go. And I don't understand why, but I don't need to understand why. We just need to get like this moving, basically. But to meet in the Page of Pentacles is basically confirming what I said earlier, which was about this man occupying the Page of Pentacles, seeking property, seeking gain, which is shown in the Nine of Cups. And there are going to be those who are like, how dare you? The Nine of Cups is the wish card. And it's like, yeah, we all have wishes. What if his wish is, I want my ex-wife back, regardless of what it does to her or to anybody else, because she is mine? Because that's essentially what his wish is. The wish card doesn't make everything nice. People can wish death on other people. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't mean that it's a great thing to have. So let's get rid of the idea that the wish card is romanticized. People have several wishes, and not all of them are going to be considered positive or have positive outcomes. So yeah, what it's saying to me is that this guy is meeting in the Page of Pentacles as a way to find his way back to his ex-wife. See, the thing is though, this is why the child came up, because the ex-wife, what with everything being at the back of her head, which is where the occipital lobe is, which is where memory starts to come forward, and notice that she's looking down at the pentacle, which in modern day terms, you could be like looking down at your iPad or looking down at your phone or whatever it is that you're retrieving information from. She keeps revisiting the past through her activity. So there are going to be those who are like, but she's dead, how can she do that? And it's like, dudes, like, it's all around. No one actually dies, by the way, just letting you know. Like, we just jump to alternatives and alternate lifetimes and timelines. So what she's doing is she keeps, there's something that she keeps doing that is literally calling him back forward, as in calling him from her memory, and therefore sending out the vibration of that time, that era, that leaves a doorway for him to gain access through, and it's being done through children. So what that, oh God, now my eyes are being drawn to the Five of Swords, which is quite similar in ways to the Four of Pentacles for me, in that I get all when I see that card. But the Five of Swords has a bit more flexibility when it comes to my mood changes. But I will say, because it's, oh my gosh, a direct line with the wish card, and and we have the Eight of Swords and this binding to duty in many ways. We have a whole story in the first column alone that is speaking to me of oppression. Okay, where are we now? Oh my gosh. Okay, so I've spoken of oppression. Now, where is it that I'm seeing oppression in this deck? Now, I don't know why I'm hearing people like, well, the devil, of course. It's like, but is it, of course? See, this is the thing. Because this is being done, one, intuitively, two, because I know that there are matches in experience, then I can only go as far as my own experience has been with oppression. And it doesn't always mean the devil. These cards each take on a personification for me in my life. Every one of these cards has a person attached to it. Actual, like, well, I consider them living, but it could be that we're the dead end of living. But hey, every one of these cards holds one or two people that will inform me from my own experience with them as to what, in this example, oppression looks like. And interestingly, it's not the devil card, it's actually the Five of Swords. The Five of Swords also reminds me of the, where are you? King of Wands. And so another Norman technique is knighting. And knighting, as I said earlier, that homophone, I think is the word, is very similar in that if you don't know the physical reasoning behind something, if you knight it, you will see the subconscious intent, you will see the actual MO. And so if I knight the Five of Swords, and I'll do 1, 2 and up, 1, 2 and down, 1, 2 and across. Okay, so we have the Knight of Wands, the High Priestess, and Judgment. Okay, so if we were going to look at cards of death, then two of them are significant indicators of death. Judgment being the most obvious of the two that I'm thinking of, but the High Priestess is another one. And the reason I say the High Priestess is because the High Priestess is, for me, the gateway between the worlds. And she's probably the last card before the transition, before the change that comes from one lifetime to another, the gateway, as it were. Interestingly, she has the Wheel of Fortune next to her, which is the portal where, you know, that saying, it was easier for a camel to fit through the eye of a needle or something. Basically, the compression that takes place when one dies, because the body essentially like dehydrates or burns, depending upon what their burial was. Oh, come back to that in a moment. And so they get smaller, and they become the particles. It's a particular movement, whatever the science is behind it. But yeah, so that's saying to me that he died. He died, which actually happens in the poem, by the way. Won't do any spoilers, but yeah. So he died, and that's his motivation for contact again. But she keeps retrieving this contact. But before I move on to why she's retrieving it, we'll knight her in a moment. But I'm also, I recall saying something about burials and types of burials. And one card that I will point out without reading the rest of it is the Lover's card. For me, is a great indicator of burial type. And I'll show you why when I find the Lover's card. Where are you, baby? Yeah, and again, I can hear you like, it's there, it's there. I'm like, yeah, but like, I'm doing this in real time, and I didn't look at the cards before I pressed record. Oh, where are you? Ah, here we are. Oh. Oh, wow. Okay, so when I was speaking of oppression, excuse my voice, when I was speaking of oppression, and I pointed out that for me in this instance, the Five of Swords was a great card that would demonstrate that. I now realise there are many who would say, oh, the Emperor. And I'm like, oh my God, the Emperor's like my dude. I love the Emperor. But there are many who would probably attach oppression to him. But besides that, the burial. The reason I say this about the Lovers and describing the type of burial is when you look at the Lover's card, I don't know what others see, but from a mediumship perspective, I see the mound behind them. And because of my own experiences of communication and death itself, I find that to be quite reminiscent of old burial mounds, like Ireland would be a prime example. I think it's Newgrange, but where there are old like Gaelic burial mounds. And so because that's stuck in my consciousness and psyche, I tend to use that as a flag for the type of burial that I'm dealing with. Having said that, there's also like, why do we even need to know how a person was buried? Like this whole like, prove it. It's like, well, cool, I'll tell you what I see, but like, I don't know what benefit you get from me telling you that this person was, let's see what they were. Oh, here's death. Okay, so, and death, when I say here's death, I don't even know why I said, oh, another thing that happens, right, with these cards is, like I said, you see what you're meant to see. And when I went, oh, here's death, right, my eye drew to literally, I got in my periphery, in my peripheral vision, sorry, the world card turned to a skull. And I was like, oh, that's different. Haven't had that one happen before. So yeah, dear Yorick, I know him well. But I was going to keep going over here. But the reason I've looked at the world card and said, no, I see now it's cremation, is because of the Ace of Wands. She's looking at the Ace of Wands and saying, that's the way that they died. And I'm like, oh, I see. Okay, so we're just going to get the Hermit to confirm this. How are we going to get the Hermit to confirm it? Interesting, because I have no freaking idea. Okay, let's see. Where are we going with? Ah, yes. Okay, so I looked at the Hermit as I was saying, well, how are we going to get the Hermit to fix this? And my eyes drew to the right to the Four of Pentacles, and it was like, no, that's not it. And then I went back down again, and then I looked straight up, and it was like, ah, the Tower. Yeah, okay, so the Hermit is confirming that. This woman, no, the man of this relationship that shouldn't be a relationship for her, at least, was cremated. Another thing that I received as a phrase was, and no one was sad. Interesting, right? This is something that I'd heard over the last few days, and it actually stopped around 2 days ago, but it was persistent. It was like, and no one was sad. And I knew that someone had died, but I wasn't sure who. That's another way that intuition works, is phrases and even music, songs might come to you days before you even try to read or even realize that that's what it relates to. Things land as a way for you to pick them back up to connect to the correct story, but they land like waves do. And so if you're walking straight along and you've got a song going on up here and I don't know, a taste going on down here, you don't become aware of their connection until the right place. It's literally like spirit lands it at your feet and says, right, I've done my run. Now can you please just pull the story together so we can get the heck out of here? Okay, so that's essentially what's happened. What else do we have? We have, okay, I'm hearing, well, what's his age then? And it's like, I'm not going to age this dude. I'll tell you why, right? Because it will bring him back. And she's like, I just want to escape him. And I'm like, well, in good conscience, I can't allow that to happen. So the more detail you give a person in terms of physical representation, you also give an opening for manifestation. And so unless you know what you're dealing with, and I'm not claiming that I do, I just know that this guy feels like an a-hole, I'm not going to lie. I would strongly advise that when it comes to aging, as in what age are they and where did they live and all the, I suppose, key proving points, ask yourself if it's necessary, because you are essentially creating a portal for a return to that space, and you are in effect playing God, like, and entirely up to you if that's what you want to do, but just be aware that there are consequences that can go with that. Some are absolutely beautiful, others are not, but you need to do a risk assessment in order to do that. Speaking of which, this whole let spirit in to do the work, it's like, yeah, is it? Just be careful about that. I am a strong advisor of absolute discerning. Yes, you are considered a medium. Yes, you are considered a psychic, but it doesn't make you stupid. At the end of the day, you have a front door for a damn reason. You choose to open it and you choose who you allow through it. You do not, under any circumstances, just accept willy-nilly what it is that others have told you should accept, because they're not the ones who have to deal with it when, like, you're on your own. So if someone comes to your door and they're acting crazy, the likelihood of you saying, oh, please do come in, is like proper low. So why would you do that when it comes to spirit? At the end of the day, if someone's an a-hole when they were alive, the likelihood is that they're still an a-hole when they're dead. That doesn't change. That's the whole point of spirit. Spirit remains unchanged. It will find its own in its own. So don't be afraid to say no. It's in fact imperative that you do say no, because if you don't, you're letting all in. You're not just saying, oh, I'll accept that, but not that. No, you're saying, I let spirit in, therefore I'll take it all. And it's like, all does not mean good. It really, really doesn't. And don't think that it in any way is a stain upon your character if you say hell to the freaking no. You don't have to give reasons why, you know. So don't do it. But anyway, where are we? See, now I've said that, I'm thinking I've got a proper like Four of Cups vibe going on, because it's like, well, I just said hell no. So let's find Four of Cups. What have we got here? Where are we? Four of Cups. Now, I know I'm conscious of the time. Oh my gosh. I'm conscious of the time, so I'm gonna stop this shortly, but there is something that's happened with the Four of Cups. So more to this story, and these cards really that are calling out to me are more confirmation than anything else. Another thing that I would point out, so I've said hell no to the Four of Cups, interestingly, which is at the Ace of Pentacles. And exactly what I just said, right next to the Ten of Wands, which is saying to me, what you just said, that's what that looks like in tarot. So it's basically saying, I have said hell no, I don't care what it is that you're offering me. I am not going to work with you until I know. Until I know, which is in my Page of Wands. But anyway, point that I want to make before I leave this is the Fool card. The Fool card, right. I don't know how this is received by others, but I have issue with this card in many flipping ways, right? I know that people look at it and they're like, oh, let me turn it the right way around. They're like, I don't know. Actually, I do know. I'm just going to say it. So the Fool card, people are like, oh, it's a card of innocence. It's new beginnings. It's a new... Yeah. New beginnings for who and what? Like, first of all, ask yourself, what is it you're running from that you need to begin again? Like, do you know what I mean? Now, it's not everyone who's wanting to begin again is running from anything. But in my experience, because of because of the disembodied people and things that come to my door and my reasons and their reasons for being there, this card is not the innocence it claims to be. Reverse it, right? Which I think it was when I picked it up. And I don't know if you can see it, but I do. This the fool's body looks very similar to a pushchair. There's the handle. Let me just get it clearer. Oh, it's very dim, blurred. But here's your handle. Here's the hood of the buggy, and here's the base of it, right? But if you look at it as well, you can see the fool's pole that they're holding that has their bag on the end of it. This little, what was the buggy, what was the pushchair, the orange part of it now has a face. And if you look at it, it looks like there's like a little kind of Rumpelstiltskin type character riding on a broomstick and being like, I'm coming for you, yippee, yippee. And that is essentially what happened in the poem, The Exorcist 2, the kid, basically saying like, that little pesky little stalker is using the kid and the image of the kid of being innocence and newborn. Oh, they're brand new. That's essentially what this thing capitalizes on. It's a pesky little germ. It's an absolute bug. And it's trying to pursue this woman through the untainted image that we have in the tarot of the fool. Who's the fool? Essentially, like the cards that apparently are so incredibly positive contain so much flipping manipulation. It's absolutely unreal. But anyway, this is a very, very brief, for me, 50 minutes in, very a very tiny overview of how I deal with mediumship messages in the tarot. I hope it's been of use. I know I can go on and on and on, but this literally does go on and on and on. I'm pretty sure the question then is, but how do we get rid of it? How do we get rid of it? Well, I would advise listening to the poem, and where you feel that there is a connection, a resonance, lay out your cards. Oh, I just saw a cross here at the Five of Cups, between the Five of Cups and the Page of Wands. But anyway, yeah. Oh, and the Ace of Swords. There's your answer. But yeah, besides that, if you wanted to find the answer that was specific to you, listen to the poem, where it resonates, lay out your cards. Your eyes will be drawn to exactly what your answer is. Now, there are such things as tarot spells, which I would love to go into, but it takes one-on-one and a lot of trust to be able to do. But there was a little message in there that if you were wanting to exercise anything, you could do that. Yeah, that sounds ominous, and it is. Right, okay, so that's me done. Enjoy.